Opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Between science and ignorance, there is filler.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Filler. Original broadcast date is March 12th, 2017. My guests tonight are the group. My guest tonight is the group Spirit Mechanix. There, that would be the proper way to say that. We've got 4 out of 5 members of the group, so we'll be getting with them in just a moment. I will remind you that Paranormal Filler is sponsored each week by Ken Boggles, House of Cards, Tarot by Ken.com, and of course I do welcome aboard Spirit Mechanix as a sponsor. Spirit Mechanix for your spiritual health and well-being. Shout out to my network affiliates, Dark Matter, AM/FM 24/7, Diversity Broadcasting, and Live Paranormal, and of course all of my great broadcast partners that help me promote the show across the internet. And a super special shout out to my new feature. Welcome to the Paranormal Filler News Team, Mindy Winholtz. She's come on board with me, doing my news for me. I'll have that segment during the show. She's given me some good stuff to work with, and that makes my job a lot easier. Guess I should update the webcam for those of you watching the studio cam. This weekend I went to Lexington Comic-Con. That's my big report for the evening. Okay, my impressions of Lexington Comic-Con. Of course, most of my exposure to the nerd culture since I was in high school has been watching The Big Bang Theory. And now, based on Friday night, I would have said that there are a lot more Amy's out there than there are Pennies. But I will say, the crowd Saturday, there were enough Pennies wandering around the building that there was plenty of perfectly wonderfully attractive women and some great cosplay. Friday night on Scarefest Radio, I said I was a little disappointed with the cosplay. It came around Saturday. It might have been the sheer numbers involved when you've got a bazillion people in a building and like 1% of them are dressed up like superheroes. You notice it. But anyway, some of the cosplay was off the hook. Some people look like they wore their Batman pajamas, but that is not my judgment to make. One thing I did learn this weekend, I am out of con shape. I am not ready for a 3-day con. Saturday, went in, was there from the morning, mid-afternoon, the dogs gave out. My feet were sore, my back was hurting. I need a little con exercise there to get me through one of these things. But everybody, you're on Paranormal Filler. Steven, Brian, Holly, and Tiff, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing? Hey.
Oh boy, this is going to be a fun one, I can tell, because y'all are not afraid to talk over each other. And that's great. That creates a better show if everybody just talks.
Well, we never claim to be professional, so...
Everyone, we are talking, of course, to Spirit Mechanix. Full disclosure, they have come on board Paranormal Filler as sponsors. So I wanted to go ahead and feature them and tell you a little bit about what they do, and also to finish up the disclosure, I went to them. What was that been? 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, to get some energy work done. About 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks.
Got some energy work done. Did a little what I would call acupressure. Oh, I got to tell you all a funny story. Got to tell you all a funny story. It's not that funny, but it's a story. When I announced you were coming on the episode, one of my followers on Twitter made some comment about, well, I wonder what they do. And they're notoriously, they're skeptics and they're notoriously snarky. So I came back with a snark. I came back with a snarky answer, and said, well, they don't light candles and chant, if that's what you were thinking. And no, actually, they thought because of your name that you built paranormal equipment, because that's what everybody does now in this world is build paranormal equipment. But no, people, these are, I'm going to put you in the energy worker category. Then you all can kind of, can fold that around and blend that however you need. But let's go ahead and someone in the group give us a general description of what you mostly do.
Well, I'm goodness gracious.
Start at the top and work your way down.
Well, I'm Brian. I'm usually the one who does primarily like physical healing work. I do guided meditations, primarily facilitate to help people find answers that they need to find on their own, whereas Steve's more of giving them clues into and them figuring out from there. As a whole, we primarily work on the spirit end to try and help them to help a client to be able to do the things that they need to do to be able to progress spiritually. If physical ailments holding them back, that's something we try to work with. I also work with herbs, so I can kind of give a recommendation on, well, try this, see if this works for you. I do work with a nurse who has an understanding on logistics of if it's a drug interaction or, something like that. I can't really go, well, you should take this because, it's going to help. Because there are some things out there as far as herbal treatments that will actually cause a severe interaction. But my wife, Holly, I'm going to hand you off to her.
I don't actually get to come much, but when I do, I work a lot with my sister here, Miss Tiffany Anal. I do a lot more shamanic work, soul retrieval, a lot of emotional support, because I can I don't really want to say attach myself, but that seems like the best word for it, to that other person to try and get them to calm down and kind of center themselves to be more aware of what's going on.
Okay, why did all the chicks leave the room when I was in there then? Sounds like you might have been an asset.
You want to know the real truth?
Yeah, I do. Other than taking a smoke break, yeah.
The thing of it is what I have a tendency to do is I look at how the person's mind works, what their emotional state is, what their triggers are. And you struck me as the type of person that...
Crazy. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, but you struck me as the type of person that doesn't like to show a weakness, so to speak, in front of a female. It's not a chauvinistic thing. It's just an inherent, I have to be strong around a woman. So that was the reason why I grabbed Holly and we took off, because we felt like that would make things easier for you to be able to open up to the guys, which would help to facilitate fixing what you had going on.
You hit the tree, but you missed the target. I do not. I think the guys would back me up on this. I don't like showing weakness, period. Especially in the spiritual realm, because that's my thing. So, but I mean, mostly I was just admitting that I was beat the hell up. Now I'm going to throw this at you. Something you all should put in your resume. Of course, maybe this because the ladies left, but a lot of what you guys did was just good old fashioned talk it out therapy. Get off your ass and get your shit straight. That kind of stuff. Yeah. Not in so many words.
Throwing down.
We're going to tell you.
So I think you should include that in your resume. The now is well, gentlemen, do you think it was after having me in the session? Do you think it was proper that the ladies left? Do you think it was more effective by me not? What do you think I would have held back in front of them?
To a point, every guy does that. Every guy has that need to be strong and to be, I'm the man, that kind of thing. And plus,
fewer people.
Fewer people in the room.
Oh yeah,
I mean, if you have, because at that fair we had all 5 of us. If you have all 5 asses in there trying to talk to one person at one time, it starts to get a little jumbled for the client.
I can understand that.
So periodically, one of us will step out or something like that, and kind of ease the tension. That way, it doesn't feel like also I'm being ganged on for these things, because everybody's getting the same thing at the same time, and it's usually that discretion of, all right, one of us is going to take a walk, or 2 of us are going to go take a walk. Unless, that absolutely we need everybody in. We need all hands on deck because something's about to go down.
Right. I mean, if it comes down to an attachment removal or a very serious soul fragment retrieval, things like that, all 5 of us are right there on deck. But typically, if it's a situation where all we're really needing to do is get to the root, either psychological or emotional traumas, then most of the time we kind of weed ourselves out a little bit, make things easier for the person to actually open up and talk.
No, that actually makes sense because, a lot of people are not comfortable speaking in front of groups. But you all have to remember, my entire life is sharing. I mean, I pretty much, I share a whole lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't. Now, I've never seen this type of thing done in a group setting. We'll kind of concentrate on the energy work side of it.
Sure.
What brought the 5 of you together?
Well, a few years ago, my wife Holly has pseudo seizures, so she'll blank out and lose bits of memory. Well, at the time, I'm getting into the paranormal, I'm getting into the metaphysical, and I'm looking, this thing had happened, and all of a sudden, there's this bear-looking dude in the shop that I frequented. So he's, giving me answers to some stuff, and we're talking. And from there, we kind of just hit it off as friends. I mean, we talked, periodically about, 2-3 times a week. And he started showing me some stuff, and then I learned some things on my own. And then Tiffy and Steve started dating. And we ended up going, doing some random things, or, going from, we have this weird feeling, let's go check out this park. We have this weird feeling, let's go check out this other place. Huh? Right. Well, Ethan ended up coming around not too long after that, after, Tiffy come on, and we were all just hanging out. And he worked with Holly for a little bit on, some of her emotional issues, which is what that's one of his talents. He works with people's emotional states.
He offsets Tiff.
Yeah. So he started coming around, and he kind of disappeared for a bit, and then started coming to the fair, regularly when we actually had started the booth.
And we just put him to work because he was always there.
Yeah, we just ended up putting
You've got talent, kid. Come on.
You've got democracy. Let's do this.
So it was basically different walks and different understandings, sort of becoming a motley crew. We are the kind of the metaphysical A team at this point, you know. But it works out for us. The
5 different mindsets, the 5 different ways of looking at a situation, the 5 different perspectives, you know, allow us to look at it from
5 different angles.
From 5 different angles. So it helps to get a full view of a situation rather than, oh, well, I'm solo and I have all the answers.
Right. It's also a way for us to keep a check and balance system.
Yeah.
If one of us is off or if one of us is wrong, we're called on it. Or if one of us is right, it's expanded upon.
Yeah.
So it gives for a much more accurate read. And when it comes down to, like you said, the energy work, it makes sure that we're more efficient and we get the job done correctly so that it doesn't fall apart later.
And quicker. Whereas, you know, if you're working on, you know, so you're doing solo, you're going to go at it with a wide spray gun. Whereas we can each individually, you know, be laser precise with what we're doing and be much more, like he said, effective and efficient. And it don't drain us as dry.
Right, there is that. It taxes the body pretty severely after a while.
I would say it does. Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Everybody, you're listening to Paranormal Filler. My guests tonight are the Spirit Mechanics.
Hello, friends. Are you exhausted with life? Resent your children? Maybe your husband is cheating on you. Get yourself a tarot reading with Ken Boggle. He can provide you with the clarity, guidance, and answers you need. That's tarotbyken.com. He makes things seem less shitty.
And now, for Breaking the News, brought to you by Paranormal Filler.
British athletes claim sex ghost is haunting their reality show. I live for this stuff. A randy ghost appears to be keeping a celebrity athlete up all night with its sexual habits. A female contestant from the British snow skiing reality show, The Jump, no pun intended, reported incubus-like interactions while sleeping in her hotel room. Katina Cox, a 25-year-old Paralympian, made claims that she was penetrated sexually by an unseen force while resting up in preparation for the show. She confided this to 2 of her fellow competitors, one being Emma Parker Bowles, niece of the Duchess of Cornwall. And apparently someone's confidence was misplaced. For more information, visit HuffingtonPost.com.
This has been Breaking the News, brought to you by Paranormal Filler.
And welcome back to Paranormal Filler. Still talking to Spirit Mechanics. Okay, I want to hear about soul retrieval. And not so much the hows, but the whys. I've heard 2 different ways, theories, whatever, on the fragmented soul. And they may both be correct, actually, because I don't see any reason that both things could not happen. What is your definition of the fragmented soul and soul retrieval?
Basically, there's a lot of things that can actually make a soul, quote unquote, fragment. Basically, what it is it's just a chunk of yourself, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's just a chunk of yourself that is lost to the ether. It's something that You've either decided to move away from you because you're either denying it or afraid of it. It's something that you lost in a past life that needs to be brought back. It could be a number of different things. The important thing is acceptance. That's what soul retrieval is actually really about. It's about wanting to be whole again, so all the missing pieces actually fit back to where they're supposed to be. Have you ever wondered why a lot of people really just have this almost obsession with the Akashic record? That's actually the biggest reason. They're looking for an answer that they can't find in this particular life. And most times you'll find that those people have a soul fragment. Pretty much, depending on which one of us is actually going after the quote-unquote fragment, it goes in a very different direction. Brian goes into a meditative state and astral projects and goes and finds it. Holly takes them to go and find it. Here, I'm going to take you by the hand. We're going to go and get it. Tiff goes in between them both and acts more as a channel for both of them to find their way back safely. Whether it is just Brian and Holly, or if it's Brian, Holly, and the client, Tiff's able to make sure that everybody has a lifeline.
Okay. In an odd way, that makes sense. Now, here's some things I want to ask about it, based on other stories that I've heard and little suppositions that I've made. I know one person in the paranormal field, much more famous than I, talks about having contacted basically a ghost of himself.
Okay, yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, if you leave a spirit fragment behind for whatever reason in a past life, that if it's a big enough piece of your soul that it could take on the appearance, the feeling, the actions of a ghost. And that, to me, that explained, I mean, he just made it sound like, oh, we have, we do this all the time. And I'm thinking, no, that doesn't sound healthy. But would that explain, am I on the right track with the way I perceive his interpretation?
For the most part, I have seen, because the soul, now we're getting into the nature of the soul itself. The soul is that spark of the way we perceive it. Other schools of thought perceive it in different ways. But the way that we perceive it is the soul itself is that spark of the creator. So if an emotional trauma or, something similar to that causes a piece to break off, it can have its own personality. It can. I've had an argument with soul fragments before, like, no, I'm here. I'm in this time. I'm doing this thing. No. Here's these things. Here's this stuff. So what it ends up in is that spark of creation that is there. It's standing there. It's doing its thing. Mm-hmm. For some, it's just a little sliver of something. For others, it's a full person, a personality, its own thing, its own quote unquote entity.
We were actually, of course, we won't name names, but we were actually dealing with a client at one point that had a soul fragment that was so bad that they thought they had a split personality. And we got to doing what we were doing with you and asking the questions and getting in deeper. And we started looking at things from a different perspective than psychological. Like, okay, well, what's missing? And Brian went in and he started looking, and he's like, well, there's a chunk the size of a grapefruit that's missing from this person. Okay, we're going to go after it. Long story short, we find the soul fragment, we place it and we facilitate the change so that it's able to actually reintegrate properly. A couple months later, the person comes back to see us, hadn't had another episode, had been sleeping properly, there was no signs of a psychological trauma anymore, and any signs of this quote-unquote other persona had completely disappeared.
Now, this actually might be related to what you just described. The other thing that has run through my mind, now I'm a big believer in, and thanks to people that don't really know anything about string theory, they think a lot of them think I'm right. I believe in the multiverse, okay? And I believe that we're born, we come into this world, here's our soul, Then as our life progresses, I think certain decisions that we make at important events in our life. In other words, I don't think, the decision between having coffee or tea is going to change your life. But, certain things along our life, create these, I would call them parallel. I hate to use the word universe. That sounds so corny, but parallel lives that exist somewhere in the multiverse, such as, the major life events. Should I ask her to marry me? Should I do this? Should I do that? When those major events come along, how you react to some type of abuse or something like that. So they create these separate, in other words, you're living separate lives. And that's fine as long as those lives, they go along for a long time. And then at a certain point, if one of those lives either takes a bad turn or eventually, I think sometimes they actually can intersect back and bring everything back together. But I think sometimes things happen in the other life that actually, in other words, if it happens, something really bad happens in life A, the person living life B still feels that.
Actually, you're absolutely, at least as far as the way we view things, you're absolutely right. But that's not, at least in our view, that's not necessarily a soul fragment.
No, I realize that, but I'm saying that, to me, that would create the circumstances.
Oh, right. Regret, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Why did I make a choice? Why did I do
very easily.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And that would cause soul fragmentation, yes.
Okay, yeah, because, the thought of being pulled apart by two lives, by the memories, the feelings. In other words, I realize there's lots of things like you described. There's a lot of causes in it, but I just wanted to know if that would fall into that category, and you've kind of validated.
And that's what I'm saying when I said there's a lot of different ways that someone can actually wind up with a soul fragment.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing is when you're talking about, strength theory, when I'm basically going into a meditative state and going and looking, there are certain things that I'm not allowed to say. It'll be, for me, it'll be this it'll look like a gold node, what it'll look like to me. Other people might perceive it differently, but it looks like a gold node, and I know for a fact that this is a life-changing event that I am not allowed to say a word about. Even though I know it, I see it, I perceive it, but I'm not allowed to see past the intersection, and I'm not allowed to tell them that it's coming up. That's something that we talk theoretical metaphysics all the time, or even string theory, or plane physics, because of the we look at it scientifically first. We perceive things a little differently than most people who practice what we practice, but we try to facilitate that better outcome in those splits is what we try to do. We can't, it's something we can't force.
We prepare the person to make that choice, so that regardless of which choice they actually choose, in the end, they are going to be satisfied with the choice they made. We tell people all the time that pretty much as far as our energy work, what we do is facilitate a change, because that's what it is. Energy workers are only able to actually do energy work up to a certain point. After that certain point, it's just like going to a regular doctor. You have to do some of the work yourself in order to maintain a healthy body. Well, it works the same way with a spiritual body. So you go to see a physician. If you got a cold, you go see a metaphysician when your spirit's broken.
What we try to do in the long run, if you really kind of want to put it in simplistic terms, and this is partially where the name of the group came from, is that we try to give you the tools to put in your toolbox to have that better outcome, so that you've got what you need to be able to make it through this journey.
Or even to a point of, to confirm what Tiffy was saying, even to a point of you're going, the tires are flat on the car. Well, maybe we need to change the tires. Maybe the oil filter's clogged up. We need to change the oil filter. And doing those small things will help that person to be able to, make that change for the better, or even get through this rough period of time that they're going through.
And then you get somebody like me that rides the clutch all day. Okay, we're going to take another commercial break, and you're listening to Paranormal Filler.
Do you feel lost in life? Do you seem to be stuck in emotions that are not yours? Is your home not the sanctuary it should be? Contact Spirit Mechanics, where they take a team approach to your metaphysical and spiritual problems, specializing in aura cleansing, stone attunements, attachment removal, and house cleansings. Spirit Mechanics tailors their approach to your spiritual path and needs. Find them every month exclusively at Lexington, Kentucky's Mystical Fair, mpfair.com, or on Facebook by searching Spirit Mechanics, that's spelled Mechanix. Spirit Mechanics, for your spiritual health and well-being.
And welcome back to Paranormal Filler. I'm your host, Wes Forsyth. I am speaking to Spirit Mechanics. Now, if I get everybody's names right, now, Stephen, you're the one that is legally blind, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because it's interesting. You were telling me that you pretty much, overcome this, if that's the right words. You see auras. You see energy. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I actually see the flow of energy in the air like moving water.
Now, I want to get into aura cleansing, and that's why I brought that up. When it comes to auras, are you the go-to guy on that, or is that still a very, very much shared responsibility on the diagnosis of aura problems? Tell me a little bit about that.
Truthfully, it all comes down to what's actually needed in the aura cleansing. With me, I can actually do everything from completely rebuild the chakra system to actually just filter the aura out and just pull the muck out. Specifically, my expertise is the attachment removal and the inner energy work. So the really damaged spots. So I would be the surgeon of the group.
You should have seen what he did to me whenever we first met.
No, I don't want to hear that story. We're a family show.
But as far as aura cleansings are concerned, the interesting thing, at least from the way I work, is whereas some people need to work on with intuition or hot or cold spots or tingles or the physical sensation. Usually when I look at somebody, I know exactly where the problem is. It shows up as a hole in the aura or a mucky spot, or it will show up as a different color. Well, this particular color, say it's yellow. For me, yellow is more of an emotional trauma. Okay, so this person is shining yellow specifically around, their head and neck, which tells me that they are either doubting themselves or have a major stressor that's been placed on them. What's really great is the way I was trained was in alchemy. You've heard it before, I'm sure, energy alchemy. Basically what I do is I take the person's own aura and repurpose it to cleanse itself. Or I will take of my own aura, depending on the situation, to remove things that are harmful. What makes it actually very difficult is, and I'm going to have to be a little raw, is when people start lying. It's more than just a denial. It's, I tell them to their face, I see it, and they sort of do that whole choke thing of, yeah, well, no. No, your first response was correct, yeah? Let's not lie about it. Let's fix it. Don't hold on to it. So the repression and the denial make my end of the job very, very difficult. But that's what makes it very awesome, having people like Tiff and Holly and Ethan, who are able to work on the emotional end a lot better than I am. Because when they can calm them down and let them realize that it's okay to be healthy, I can help them become healthy.
Question from the chat room, and this is something, kudos to Carol from Canada, because she did my research for me. You all do on your Facebook a regular spiritual forecast.
Yes.
Which I knew absolutely nothing about, so I'm flying blind here. But she says that you look at energy, spell work, the good and the bad physical effects. And the question was, who actually does the forecast? Is that a group effort? Is that one of you? And whose idea, et cetera, and what's your goal with that?
That would be my baby. The reason why I do that is because it's normal for me. It's an everyday thing for me to walk into the flow and get smacked in the face with whatever's happening. So the idea behind the forecast was to actually give some people, especially sensitives, that aren't quite as in control as they need to be. We call them involuntary empaths, the ones that can't control it yet. People like that really need a heads up. You guys are going to walk outside, and it's going to feel like you have a wet towel thrown in your face. The other thing is that I tried the whole good, bad, and ugly thing. I tried to make it a little more fun so it wasn't just a droning on, this is what's going to happen for the next couple days. But the good is the metaphysical benefits. This is what people who are sensitives, energy workers, psychics, spell workers, whatever, this is what you can see as an actual boon from the change in energy. The bad is more of the downside of that. Okay, well, you get these benefits from it, but this is what could possibly happen as a result. The ugly is more of the mundane. This is how people are going to actually react on a regular basis, at least for the next few days, because of the change in flow. So the whole thing is basically a early storm warning. Bad weather is coming, or great weather is coming here.
And then when Mercury hits, the tornado siren goes off.
Yeah.
I don't hear another damn word about Mercury. I hate that planet. We should blow the damn thing up.
I agree, sir.
You're good
That-
for another month. We don't go into retrograde until the beginning of April.
It's funny. You know, I never heard that term Mercury retrograde. And since I've gotten into the spiritual side of everything, you know, it pops up, I don't know, however many freaking times a year. And sure enough, it's always, there's stuff just going to hell during it. And it's really starting to piss me off. I like to, I would like to prefer to think that I control my own destiny and things like that. But, you know, what the hell?
You do. It's just Mercury likes to put Legos in the floor for you to step on.
Yeah, but how in the world does a planet seem to put it down for everybody all at one time? That just blows me away.
Well, the interesting thing about that is we're constantly pulling in energy, 24/7. That's, what the chakra system basically is. So a slight change in the magnetic field where Mercury is deciding, deciding to, but because if it's a planet and it can think on it.
Who knows? Maybe it does.
Well, when it goes into retrograde, it's a change in the magnetic field. Well, humans are hardly sensitive to magnetic field, even if it's on just a subconscious level. So when we're pulling in energy, which we constantly do, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that change becomes, a little bit more, So
it basically sends us into an overload.
Yeah.
We go critical. There's too much. We can't use it the way we need to use it. And because of that, it actually causes a really chaotic chain reaction. People get a lot more aggressive. People's auras get a lot more aggressive. Even to the point where you start affecting electronics around you. It just gets insane after a while.
it is the first planet before, the sun's magnetic field, sun's magnetic field exits. So,
Yeah.
that change.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about attachment removal. Now, that was one thing I shared with you all is attachment removal being there for when one happened is basically what brought me in from the I hate to use the word scientific side, the technological side of the paranormal to the spiritual side.
Yes.
Tell people about the attachments or some of the what you would call classifications of attachments that people tend to carry around with them without even realizing it.
Well, the one of the first ones that we see when we're doing attachment removal is the sludge. That's the first stage. It's the negativity that's just built up in the aura, and over time, everybody gets it. Everybody has those moments.
I never really thought of that to fall into that category, but continue.
Well, it kind of goes into that.
It progresses.
It progresses. So it starts off with the sludge. And because that sludge is energy, it has a tendency to coalesce into something. So the next step after that is what we call tendrils. So it looks like little tentacles that are coming off the aura. So they're not quite there yet, but they are solidifying to a point to where it's starting to become a little bit detrimental. Then the next step after that is what we call leech,
which is a full-blown attachment.
That's a full-blown attachment. So for us, they look like lampreys on shark.
It's kind of like if you look at it from a scientific perspective, it's kind of like a fast-forwarded version of the evolution from primordial ooze to a sentient being.
Actually, that's very good.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
And then from there, they just keep getting, bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
to the point where, you know, there's a person that is standing there, but nobody else can really perceive it. It's not a quote unquote ghost, but it's taken on a shape of a person that, you know, but this person is made up of entirely negative energy. So they end up basically influencing the aura field in order to be able to quote unquote be. So I need this particular type of frequency in order to be able to sustain myself. If I cause them to have depression, I will get that frequency. If I cause them to have anxiety, they will have that frequency. If I cause them to have, you know, nightmares, they're definitely going to have that frequency. But when you get further, you know, into more of the darker end entities, then you're getting into something a little bit different as far as attachments.
Right. That's when you move away from attachments and get closer to quote-unquote possessions.
Now, your spirit guides are technically an attachment.
Yep. They are attached to you. They are bound to your soul.
Yep. Spirit guides are attachments. Spirit animals are attachments. Guardian angels are still within the category of attachment because they are attached to you. The ones that we try to facilitate the change on are the ones that we quote unquote create ourselves. Right. You know, that whole saying, you create your own demons.
Yes. We're actually, I want to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Everybody, you're listening to Paranormal Filler.
TarotByKen.com. Unlike other tarot readers, Ken reads multiple spreads during each session to provide you with clear, concise answers and guidance. Don't take my word for it. I'm just a voice on the radio. From Kelly, one reading with Ken completely changed things around for me. Jennifer, I feel so rejuvenated about my life. Melissa, it has changed my life. Visit TarotByKen.com to arrange your own tarot date, or you can call or text Ken at 859-229-4833.
And welcome back to Paranormal Filler, our final segment of tonight with the Spirit Mechanics. What you just described to me falls very closely to what I call the Tulpa effect. A Tulpa, of course, being a created entity. Right. And it sounds to me like with one step added in there, that's the way I have perceived a couple of things that I've experienced. The person carries this baggage along, but then to me, I think that there's, well, actually, I encountered one that, I think it might have just grown into it. But then most of the time, it seems like they do something really boneheaded that gives this thing life.
Right. Well, the interesting thing, actually, the Tulpa effect that you're talking about is something that the group refers to as a thought form.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is a type of attachment, but it is created solely from the person's mind. That doesn't mean that the person is delusional per se, but the negative emotions and the negative perspective, key word there, on their particular life and how things are going, create these horrible images. And that's what a thought form is. Well, a tulpa is actually created from the darker side of yourself. It's basically where you start focusing on your flaws. You start focusing on your weaknesses. You start focusing on the things that you've done to others that make you feel like you're a terrible person. And after a while, the thought form goes, well, I now have purpose. And as soon as the thought form actually gains purpose, it becomes a tulpa. And those are a pain in the ass to get rid of.
You're preaching to the choir there, brother. No, really, very quickly, I'll say that the first one that I really felt like I encountered just in a more of a random way, the girl was talking about this ghost that followed her around. And I never could really sense it, but the things that I could normally do to block off a person from a ghost or anything. In other words, I have this, I can mute things, you might say. I could not do. It did not work for her. The things that I would normally do did not work for her. And the other one, this thing had, and so much, to this day, I do not think that it was anything more than something that she had manifested, but it actually gave us a Class A EVP or two.
Now, that would be classified as a tulpa. Any that are able to give a direct, intelligent response is classified as a tulpa because it has its own independence, even though it is a thought form from the person.
Right. Yeah, I understood that, and the reason I said about boneheaded, I think this woman had all kinds of issues, and then decided to get into New Age bullshit stuff, and at first we actually thought maybe she summoned something really nasty, but the more and more I thought about it and meditated on it, and the way once again the things that I would normally do didn't work, I said no, that is I went about it completely wrong, and because it took me, I was slow getting on the thought train of what I was dealing with.
Right,
so
right.
Of course, and the people with me is going through the house throwing holy water everywhere, and I said, well, that didn't work.
Guess what that's going to do?
Get them wet?
Why am I wet now?
Yeah, that's okay. We're at the end of the show. Did we not cover anything that we meant to? We got into attachment removal a little bit, aura cleansing. I do want a little bit about the energetic healing, but another thing that we haven't dwelled on is you all actually try to do a little. I would put it in the classification of acupressure when it's somebody with an actual physical.
Actually, that's technically what we do. Yeah.
Okay.
Usually when I'm doing acupressure or when Steve's doing acupressure, we're let the person know that, there are going to be these particular sensations that are going to happen within your body because I'm hitting a pressure point. I took martial arts for a few years a while back, and I learned pressure points through that. And so I know what it's going to do. If I hit the pressure point on your forearm, it's going to cause your hip to buckle. If I hit the pressure point in your leg, a specific one in your leg, it's going to cause your leg to go numb. So it's when we're doing like somebody has back issues or something like that, we're going to do a series of acupressure spots in their back to get the nerves in their back to release. Yeah, I might be adding a little bit of energy in with it to kind of help facilitate it a little bit faster, but it's still me using acupressure and holding that spot until the nerve decides to go, oh, I can let go now.
And I know that was one of the things you worked with me on a little bit because the old man here has really bad shoulders, and as I told y'all before the show, when I left for 2 or 3 days, zero discomfort. And then I rolled over the wrong way in the middle of the night. Things that old men do for $20, please. And landed on it wrong. And then, but it's not, honestly, it has not been as bad. And I'm going to give you all credit for that. And my meditation has been going better. I do, but beyond what you all do, I need sunlight. I am convinced that I need sunlight to cope, to do everything.
Yes, sir. Hey, some people do need that. For me, it's just sitting in the woods. It doesn't matter if it's sunlight or moonlight.
For me, I've got to be next to water.
Yep. That's each individual person has their, things that make them feel better. So, yeah, I can see that.
And of course, that means in the wintertime, I am a bear. So everybody, we're going to get the plugs in here now. We've just got a couple minutes left. Now, you all need to get a web domain because I hate Facebook. But if you go to Facebook, search for Spirit Mechanix, and it is spelled like it is on the banner for tonight's show, Mechanix. They are at the Mystical Paranormal Fair once a month. That is mpfair.com. But through their Facebook page, you can contact them and find out more things. And if you have any thing that you feel falls into the spiritual realm, or a physical thing that maybe you think that spiritual help could or energy work could help with, they are now my go-to team. Anything else you all would like to share?
That's pretty much it.
Actually, one thing that I did want to mention is that if you look at our Facebook page, it basically says that we are a community, and that is what we are. What we've been talking about tonight is what goes on in the booth. Now, we also do house calls, house cleansings, spirit removals in houses and things like that. And for those instances, we actually do have other people that are within our group that do go on these house calls with us. It's not just, the faces that you see in the booth every month. And that is one thing that we really, really wanted to throw out and acknowledge, is the fact that, we're not the only ones.
We like we said, we have a core group of about 5 or 6 that, pretty well basically handle being the face. Yeah. Whereas, behind the scenes and stuff like that, when we go to do a house call or, we do a consultation, I might pull in our friend Gail, or Steve will pull in our friend Chris, or if it's, bad enough that we need extra help, we'll pull in, Greg or, somebody like that. But we have, probably about 15 people that work with us and run with us.
Yeah, they all have their own special skills. Gail actually does a lot of hard work for us, building a lot of the tools that we use for our harder cases. So, like I said, it's not just us. Chris has a tendency, he makes a lot of our stronger oils and banishment concoctions. Some of the stuff that Brian isn't familiar with, he'll come up with and give to us. And then we've got others that are there to lend a hand. So, that's the thing is, like I said, it's not just us.
Well, thank you all so much for coming on the show tonight, and thank you so much for supporting the show. I'll be seeing you in another 2 weeks. Everybody, This has been Paranormal Filler.
Paranormal Filler.